Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to share with you guys some do's and don'ts for your first UX portfolio. So since I've been helping students and young professionals looking at portfolio size for a while, I've noticed there are some very common misconceptions about what you need to put together for your first UX portfolio. So before I start, I want to thank Wix for sponsoring today's video, and I highly recommend you use a web builder for your UX portfolio like Wix. It offers a great variety of templates and ready to plug in components so you can get your portfolio site live in no time. So with that being said, please go to wix.com/YobiWix to start your own portfolio web. And also just a quick reminder, I share everything about UX on my YouTube channel, from portfolio reviews to whiteboard challenge and interview tips. So if you're interested on this type of content, please feel free to hit the subscribe so you won't miss any of my future content. So the first thing I want to share with you is show at least 3 projects. A question I often get asked is, how many projects do I need to put into my portfolio to be able to start looking for a full-time UX design job? And one very common mistake I've been seeing is people tend to put like a mix of their past experience, like for example visual design or branding projects, and together with some UX projects, but it makes the portfolio really confusing. So my first suggestion, if you're looking for a full-time UX job opportunity, is to have at least 3 dedicated UX projects on your portfolio. How do I add more projects if I want to link it to the homepage? Let me show you that. So say I want to add another project. What you can do is click on this menus and page from the navigation bar. And from here, you will see this is like my current kind of like a sitemap of existing pages I have. So those are the projects page that I have that linked under project as the main navigation, one of the main navigation bar. So if I want to add a project, one way I can do is just click on add. That will say add page, and you can do something like add a blank page, or you can select something like using those template. For example, about me, there are many different templates of how an about me page might look. So this is like, you can feel free to browse and see if some template you like and add it from the template. And one other way that I would recommend if you already have a project page built up is actually copy and paste. So for example, I already have this house case study put together. One way I can do is click on this 3-dot menu and to duplicate. You see, so once it's duplicated, it will show copy of house as the name of default. So, but I can change this to whatever name you have for your new project and click on done. So the benefit is in this view, it basically carry over the same design, same template and style you already created in another case study, and it will help everything remain consistent. So this is one way I typically do. If you already have a project project page started, just do the duplicate page, which can help you save and keep all the styles you already created. One other thing just want to comment is mention is you can move those pages very easily by just a click and hold on it. For example, I want to move this new project away from under project, but as a separate main navigation page. You can just drag and move it to here, and you will notice immediately like new project has become one of my main navigation bar that show in the header. It's really simple if you want to add it or move around your site structure to use this site page menu. One other suggestion I have is try to have a mix of different type of projects. And what I meant by different type is really show you have a wide variety of experience by working on both mobile and desktop products. Depends on each individual. I think you will have a different path or different experience working on projects, but try to be intentionally pick the projects when you can to put together your portfolio that can actually showcase you have the experience of working on a good variety of projects, and try to show it in a more realistic mock of a phone or tablet. It's usually helpful for your audience to get a sense immediately, okay, this is a mobile project, or okay, this is a probably a web or tablet. So try to have a mix of different type of projects is going to help you have a better chance to move forward in your interview process. One other tip I want to share with you is show the outcome in your project case study. So one of the top issues I noticed from UX students or young professionals is a lot of nice work showing your design process, but quite often the ending does not have any outcome. And one of the challenges I hear is a lot of the time is not a real project. It's probably a self-paced case study, or sometimes even it is a real project, it hasn't got launched yet, and there might be a lot of dynamics going on or change. So there's no actually launch data for the project. But one thing I do want to emphasize is there are different ways you can communicate your design outcome. And I want to share with you this example. So what we're looking at is a case study house that I worked on a couple of years ago, and when I looked to get into UX from a different background. So this is actually a self-paced case study that I have a dedicated video actually shared a full walkthrough of this project, how I put together this case study. So please feel free to look into more details if you're interested. But one thing I wanted to share with you at the end of this project, after all the design prototypes, I do have a section called validate. And this is the place, even it is a self-paced case study, you can definitely do something like a user interview as part of your research to compare what's the before and after result. And this helps me get into some data point. For example, the conclusion after the research, redesign, and validation, the results are, in terms of the key journey of searching for inspiration photos, 7 out of 7 users found it on home screen within 5 seconds. And when it comes to one of the other core journey, which is shopping, 7 out of 7, which is 100% of the users were able to switch between pictures of the same product. So, you get the idea, and you can help yourself plan how you want to measure the success of your design, whether it's a launch project and a real world project experience, or it is a self-paced case study. You will always have some outcome that to demonstrate how has your design has successfully solved the user problem or business problem. So have some data and outcome is a critical part of your project stories. Okay, now we are in the editor view of the UX case study project house. Let me scroll to the end of the project. I have this section called validate. And this is the area, feel free to go creative about how to show the result. But I think to have some type of data visualization is probably not a bad idea. And in this case, what I have, this is actually an image that inserted here. So I just created this image to show the before and after interview to compare how my design or redesign has positively solved the user problems. You can easily do this in the editor view by insert, like click add and go to image. And here you can go into my image upload to add your own image to the site. So you can create your data visualization first and easily add an image from this view. Beyond the image, there are also a wide variety of different components you can consider add and create as part of your portfolio. So please feel free to navigate around. So we have talked about some do's, and what about some don'ts? So the first I want to talk about is don't mix job titles. I've seen many times, people tends to put mixed title or job titles in the headline. Say, for example, I am a UX designer and a researcher with a background from business. You can talk about that in your About Me About Me page, more about your background and experience. But if your goal is to find a full-time UX job, just focus on the role as a UX designer in the portfolio, at least on the landing page. For example, this is the landing page of my website, my portfolio website. And this is the headline I have, very simple. Hi, my name is Yobi. I am a UX designer with a love for simplicity. If you put anything like a mix of job titles here, it can raise unnecessary doubts that people might question about your qualification for this job as a UX designer. So I would just keep this simple so you don't raise those confusions. So the other downs I want to talk about is don't just show process, but explain your design rationale. Let me show you an example. A lot of the candidates, when I look at their portfolio, it's very much like feels like following the same process. It all starts with some, high level statement. What's the problem we're solving for? Then there are often you will see persona, some research or competitive analysis, and there might be some lo-fi, mid-fi, then going to the hi-fi and some prototype. There's nothing wrong with the process. To make your project a compelling story, it is always helpful to have a great storytelling, and that means not just showing the process, like putting the puzzles together, following the same, same cut and same template, but to actually have your own story and tell it from your own angle and explain your design rationale. In this case study, I did a redesign for the house mobile app back then. I have those like lo-fi, some research, but when I get to the hi-fi prototype, this is the place from an interviewer perspective. This is one of the most important part. I would pause and look into some details to understand, okay, what are the changes you have made and why? So this is the place, don't just show the hi-fi pretty screens, but tell me about the background. Tell me about why. If you made any change, for example, change an icon to something different, explain me like why you have changed that. So this is just one example of how I did it. So basically I did a side-by-side mock of the before on the left and the after on the right. And there are some changes I made here. For example, rename photos to inspiration to communicate intent, and change text from Finder Pro to Find Pros to be consistent with other places when the same function is referred. If you have made any change and lend into any design decisions, how you get there. So let me show you how this is done. So in this section within hi-fi prototype, this is actually also inserted as an image. After you have the image in place, you can easily adjust the size. Here you can use this toolbar on the right by going here and make sure you have the toolbar selected. And this is where you can change the size. Like here, for example, I wanted to make sure this card is the same width as the other card I have, which is 1580. So I can have this number here. One other thing you want to make sure is to, for example, keep this card centered, which you can do if you, say, by any chance messed up the position. You can just select this card and tap on here, align to center, to make sure your card or your hi-fi screens are centered to the page. And also there are some other advanced features. For example, you can crop your image in place, and you can add some filters, animations, if you will. So there are many rich features how you can further edit your image to make sure it all looks right. One other tip is don't write too much text. Portfolio is a place you want to tell the most interesting part of your story and help an audience with no context to understand how you might qualify for this job. And this is not a place you need to write a paper and explaining every single detail of how you approach the project. One thing to keep in mind is the goal of having a UX portfolio website is often to help you move forward in your interview process. Thinking about from an interview perspective, most of the case, your audience will not be reading every single words in your case study. It's more of a browsing mode, so visuals are really important. And what I meant is don't focus too much and write long paragraph. Instead, try to use visuals. Say, for example, in research, if you have some matrix or some photos, show that. And if you're interviewing as a UX design job, you don't actually need to showcase all the details in a research study. And when it comes to ideate, if you have some diagram to show the flow and how you approach the problem, that can be really helpful. But one thing that can help is to have a few lines explain, for example, why you did the flow and how has this task flow help you to move forward in your process. For example, in this case, I have a few lines talking about I created this task flow for staffs. A user typically goes through in order to complete two common tasks within house. One is user wants to decorate a room. The other is user wants to find a pro. And To better understand where in the process users have pain points or problems, I highlighted the areas in purple where most users have struggled, where I wanted to focus most during the redesign. Not saying this is a perfect example by any chance, but the idea is if you are showing something like a task flow, don't just show it for the sake of showing it because you think needs to be a checklist or required skill as a UX designer, but show and tell the story. First of all, why you're showing me this task flow. Second of all, what have you got from doing this task flow? And try to keep it in also good length. A portfolio case study does not need to be too long, and it should be able to allow someone to scroll and understand what's the story about within like a few minutes. This is a place you want to give some thoughts about how to use visual to support your story, to make it less of an article to read, but more of a visual walkthrough of your project story. Working on your first portfolio website is definitely a big project, but hopefully those do's and don'ts we talked about today is somewhat helpful for you to understand what you should focus on to get your first UX portfolio web in place. One of the huge benefit of having a web portfolio is you can make updates and change it all the time, and which is very different than a PDF portfolio. Focus on the right things: visual storytelling, having a good mix of projects showing your experience, and of course pick an effective tool like Wix to actually start working on it, building it, put the story together. Will help you I think stay focused during this process and have your portfolio website put together in a most effective manner. At the end, I just want to thank Wix again for sponsoring today's video. If you are looking to start your own portfolio or try a new builder, I highly recommend Wix, and feel free to go to wix.com/YOBWix to start your own portfolio website. Please feel free to leave me comments and any questions, and I will see you next time. Thank you.